I mean, thank you so much for taking the time out. It's like we always see each other in passing. We have great conversations. So I'm like, I need to have him on the pod, just because it's so many things that are fascinating about you, your career, how you grew up, and which we'll get to later. You have some of the spiciest movie takes I've ever heard. You got a whole podcast on it, Cinephobe. I mean, it's a great podcast, and so your movie your movie takes I often look forward to. So yes, so thanks for joining me. But before we get started, I want to ask you a question I ask every guest that appears on Spolitics, and that is name a moment or an athlete that made you love sports.
Oh, wow. Um, you know what? I'm gonna be basic. I was thinking of all these. Oh, I remember when I was 7. I'm gonna keep it real simple. A spectacular move by Michael Jordan. Like I knew I liked basketball, but then when I saw that, I was like, oh yeah, this is for me right here. And it's funny. I don't even have to describe what play or everybody knows. I say a spectacular move by Michael Jordan, and that tells you like that's a moment. That's not some obscure hipster pick. That's something everyone can relate to.
Okay, I assume you mean when he switched hands,
Yeah, so there
glide through
you
the
go.
air. Okay, gotcha.
Yep.
All right. I mean, that for a lot of people, that is one of the definitive, if not the definitive, Michael Jordan
Yeah.
moves. So is that when you like really fell in love with basketball, or had it happen before then?
Like I said, I like basketball. I was interested in basketball. Like I remember watching like the tail end of the Celtics Lakers as a kid, and like I like being aware. I knew who, obviously Magic and Bird and Kareem and all those guys, but I like the. You know what? It probably now I'm thinking about it. It might have been earlier. It would have been them Jordan tapes. I got a bootleg of like um Michael Jordan's Playground or Come Fly With Me or one of those. I don't remember. It's been so long. I don't remember the order. For the younger kids, there used to be these things called tapes, right? It would be so like the NBA would put these things out like in the summer. It would be like a best of players or of like the league, NBA. That's what I call entertainment, whatever. And there was these Michael Jordan ones. These like Michael Jordan mixtapes, but they were like officially made by the league. And if you got your hands on one, or if you're like me, you got your hands on a copy of one, you watch this thing over and over and over again, and you learn all these great Michael Jordan moments. It was YouTube for us, basically, for our generation. And so I think I want to say it was probably one of those tapes that really, really got me into it. But when you said moment, I thought of the one moment. The one moment I thought about was a spectacular move. Him going up, he's about to dunk it. No, he's not. He's going to change hands just because. Not because anything happened, because I can.
Now you grew up in Sudan. I
Yeah.
mean, so how did you being there? And I know you grew up with a lot of unrest
Mm.
that was there in your country. So how did you balance that? You have this unrest happening in your country, and you're developing sort of this other passion as a sports fan, or particularly a basketball fan. So what was
Yeah,
that like?
I mean, you didn't know any better. Like it's the crazy thing. I listen to you talk about your childhood, and I'm like, that's crazy. And then you're like, you don't know any better. You're like, this is just life because everyone you know is going through a similar thing, and you just think like, all right, well, this is how it is. And I think like when I watched movies as a kid, I just thought like, oh, that's just movies. Like I didn't realize there were actual places with picket fences and front lawns and like people walking the dog and a paper boy and a milk. I thought it was just like, oh, this shit they made up for the movies. I didn't realize people actually lived like that. I grew up originally like I first 8 years of my life I grew up in New York City, so we lived in the city in an apartment building, and that's all I knew. And then I moved to Sudan when I'm 8, and it's as culture shock as culture shock can get, like rolling blackouts that last weeks, if not months sometimes, lack of running water for weeks, if not months sometimes, just all types of stuff. And then maybe 2 years in, there was a political coup, and what was a democracy got overthrown by a religious dictatorship. So not only, not too far fetched right now for most American citizens, but Imagine a ruler who basically says, "I'm in charge, and if you against me, that means you against God." And so what? You not only you're an infidel, you're gonna go to hell or whatever. So, it's against this backdrop. I'm kind of growing up at 8, 9, 10 years old, and you begin to realize, like, these things are that's just life. And so, when I talk about getting those tapes, I'm seriously talking about, like, people have to smuggle the tape. You have to get a tape and copy it, and like, oh, I got a copy of this thing. And it wasn't just basketball games. It was movies. It was TV shows. It was anything you could get your hands on that was like from America was music videos. I remember the first time I saw the Snoop video for "What's My Name." It was on, like, grainy, like someone got Yo MTV Raps recorded, and then they copied that copy, and then they copied the copy, and then you finally get it, and it's like, yo. And this was on the heels of hearing the Chronic. I'm like, this guy already has his own song, and I was like, they're turning into dogs and shit. Like, it was mind blowing. But, like, again, this was all how everything was funneled. There was no internet. There was satellite TV, but that was only for wealthy people. We didn't have satellite TV. So everything you got was kind of like someone's cousin came home for the summer from New York or from LA or whatever, and they had this gold on them, and you would just work this black market kind of sharing everything.
But culturally, what was that like for you to go from America to Sudan?
Yeah, it was hard, man. I didn't speak the language. Like, I had to learn Arabic. Like, I spoke a little bit at home, more understanding than speaking. But you get dropped into an environment where nobody speaks English. You're gonna have to learn. And so I kind of marvel when I think of myself. Like, I know when I got there as an 8-year-old that didn't speak, I could not have a conversation, and I know by the time, like, a year and a half later, I was fluent. And it worked out in that way. But even as you begin to speak the language, and obviously I'm Sudanese, so, like, I don't look any different to people there. Obviously, culturally, I'm very different. There's a lot of things I don't understand, a lot of things about me that they didn't understand. And um and, and to this day, I think there's a lot of things, like, especially my parents' generation, like, they didn't understand. I tell my mom things, and she's like, "No, that's not true." I'm like, "No, it's true. You guys just didn't understand that I really did not enjoy this, or I didn't like this cultural thing." I'm not talking about, obviously, any hardships or whatever. I'm talking about, like, just the way people treat you, or the way that people do this or that, whatever. And then the crazy thing was moving back to New York as a 14-year-old. Now, obviously, I speak English pretty much the way I've always spoken, like this. So the kids in that I'm going to school with and I'm dealing with, they look at me and they hear me, oh, like, he's from here. But there's cultural things now that I almost went too far in the other way. And now I'm getting into fights in school because of cultural misunderstandings rather than, me actually trying to look for a fight. And it was just, it was tough. I won't lie. It was like, you're shaped one way, and then you go somewhere completely different, fish out of water. And by the time you finally kind of at least get your bearings enough to blend in enough, you get thrown back, fish out of water somewhere else, and now you're having to struggle to figure out how to blend in again.
So that blending in process, um, I imagine that had to be difficult because for somebody who maybe lived in Sudan their whole lives, because you were coming from America, did they look at you as Sudanese or did they look at you as American?
They looked at me as American coming back here, or there or here.
In Sudan, when you
In
went,
Sudan, Al Wad Al Amriki, that's the American kid. They call you the American kid. I'm Sudanese. My parents are Sudanese. I'm born in Sudan. Like, I'm full blooded Sudanese, but they call you the American kid. Or Khawaja. Khawaja means foreigner. It's kind of like, in the movies where, like, kung fu movies, or a white guy, they call it Guaylo, right? Same shit. Like, Khawaja is the word they use in Sudan. Khawaja or Amriki, whatever. And it's like, it's one thing when it's like kids at school or whatever. It's nothing when you got family members like uncles and they think it's like, ha ha ha, oh, Hawaii, oh, look, or like, oh, he doesn't like to eat that thing, and I'm just like, it's old, it's tired, man. Like, I get it, okay, all right. Oh, look at the way he does this, everything, and it never wore off. And if there was any kind of anything, so I'll give you a great example. Drinking tea is big in Sudan. People love tea, particularly red tea, like no milk in it, just red, hot like tea or whatever. Not really a tea drinker. I'm I don't drink coffee. I don't drink any hot drinks, to be honest with you. That's just me. Obviously, there are millions of people here who drink coffee, who drink tea or whatever, and all over the world. But in Sudan, because I don't drink tea, it's like, oh, look at the American kid. He doesn't even drink. Like, no, that's not, I'm not representing for a population over here that doesn't know what tea is. Me, even if I was born here and lived here my whole life, don't like this. And not everything is tied to that. But it's like, that is constant. Everything that you do that diverges even slightly from whatever the mainstream was, it's like, it's the American boy. And like I said, it gets old after a while.
So when you go back to America at 14,
Yeah.
how did they look at you?
It's just, it was the same problem. So
Okay.
I come back, and like I said, because I always say this: if I spoke with an accent,
Mm.
I think I would have had a much easier time, because people would have just dismissed me as he's a kid from another country or whatever. Like, yeah, they might pick on you, tease you or whatever, but at the end of the day, they're not really gonna mess with you in a you offend me kind of way, for the most part. Because I looked and sounded the way I did, the assumption was you know better, right? And so you're gonna say that you're gonna say this to me, where I think I'm having a friendly conversation, but my word selection is not appropriate for the moment, and so I'm getting into fights and arguments and things like that because they didn't, there wasn't enough of a buffer of people to say that's just a foreign kid. He doesn't know what he's talking about.
Because you know how it is here in America. We often play the game of, well, what are you?
Yeah,
Right? You know what I'm saying? Trying to
yeah,
figure out, like, where do you fit? Because the only reason sometimes that we're doing that, because we're trying to understand, where do you fit in the racial hierarchy? Are you
yes,
somebody that's below me or above me? And that is
yes.
really what that entire conversation is about.
So growing up in New York, living in New York, spares me one thing, in that there's so many. First of all, there's so many nationalities there, right? I used to say, like, I grew up in New York. I didn't know any black kids. I knew Jamaicans. I knew Haitians. I knew, Nigerians. I knew, I knew, Bahamians, Trinis. I didn't know any white people. I knew Germans. I knew Italians. I knew, like, everybody was something. And obviously, you say Hispanic, boom, that's entire Latin America. Everyone's there. It's like, now culturally we might all act the same, at least at our age group, but the idea that, like, you would see someone, because some of these nationalities are kind of like, you see Dominicans, a lot of them, I look like a lot of Dominicans. Matter of fact, when I was in high school, I literally learned Spanish because I got tired of abuelas asking me directions, and I say, I don't speak Spanish. And then they say, oh, you come to this country and you forget your language. And I'm like, it's not my language. And they're like, oh my God, so you think you're American now? You've just forsaken. No, like, lady, I'm not Dominican. I'm from another country where we don't speak Spanish. And it's just easier just to learn Spanish and give her the directions and have her go about her day. But as a result, like I said, this kind of general look wasn't that rare. Went to college in Atlanta, and that's when I found out that I had quote unquote good hair. The first time I ever heard that in my life was as a college freshman. Everyone kept saying, you got good hair, and then asking if I was mixed with Indian. And I thought they meant, like, nah, man, my parents ain't from no India. But I later learned, like, oh no, they meant, like, because in the South, if you got good hair, you're either Creole or you're part Native American. And so they're trying to figure that out. Like, you look black, but what's up with the hair? And I was like, oh, I get it. No, I'm from another place. Yeah. So, but yeah, to kind of put a button on that, like, it's just one of those things where I had a culture shock going to Sudan. I had a culture shock coming back, but I came back to New York. And then I had another culture shock leaving New York and discovering what America's really like.
Mhm. So, what were your early observations about America that you noticed, is particularly after you
Yeah.
had spent years in in Sudan. How did that maybe shape how differently you thought about America as opposed to Americans, other Americans?
This is literally plane has landed from Sudan at JFK back in New York, whatever, in line at the passport thing. And the guys at the little windows or whatever. And the one dude at this window is talking to his homie over there, and he's asking him, what are you going to do with your tax refund? And the other guy says, I didn't get one. And Uncle Billy held on to it for me this year. And then they start laughing. And I'm like, and then it hit me that they're talking about Bill Clinton, the president of the United States. And I was like, and I swear to God, I was overcome with like shock and fear because these two government employees are making jokes about the president in the airport, which is notorious in shitty countries. The airport is where all the spies are at. You never see nothing. You never see nothing in general in public, but like especially the airport. That's where the shit really goes down. And so I was like, "Oh, where's the secret police? Come dragging these people away! How dare you make jokes about the president?"
Mm.
Not because I thought the
Um,
president,
I,
but like just the
yeah,
idea
because
that the leader.
I remember when me and my husband went to Hong Kong last year,
Mm-hmm.
and we were very cognizant of the fact that you cannot openly discuss certain things the way that you might if you're in America. Even though, to be honest, I was really surprised when I was there and one of the servers at a restaurant we were at just asked me about Donald Trump. I was like, why? Why are you asking me about Donald Trump? Because I was thinking like, y'all ain't about to get me over here. Like, I was like, what do you think about him? Shit, talking about me. He asked us what we thought. But I was like, what do you think? You not show me your ID, basically.
Right.
Okay. It's like y'all are not about to get me caught up. Uh, so your father was a diplomat, correct?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. So
My father worked in the foreign ministry, which is basically the State Department for Sudan.
so I mean he had a type of career where he traveled extensively and there was clearly with I think from what I've read and what I've listened to with other interviews you've done, like he had to live in other parts of the world while you and your family may have been somewhere else. There was some
Yeah.
separation. So how did that impact the way that you grew up, the fact that your father had this government position?
Well, first of all, obviously, my father, you want to talk about someone you want to interview. That's the guy you want to interview. He lived a full life. My father grew up in a village by the Nile, literally barefoot. Um, Neither one of his parents, I think, were educated beyond like a primary school education. And he went on to, at a young age, he went to it was a boarding school. He didn't stay at the boarding school. He stayed with family, but it was hundreds of miles from the rest of the family. And then from there, he went to college. He was the first one to go to college. And in the middle of college, decided he wanted to go to Europe with like $2 in his pocket. So he hitchhiked from Sudan to Europe.
Mm.
Yeah, like so from Sudan to Port Sudan, take a boat over to Saudi Arabia or whatever it was called back. I don't even know if it was a country back then up through Lebanon and then up through Turkey and Greece and Italy. Like this is a college student who's broke, who does not speak any of the languages other than English. And most of those places, nobody speaks English, right? Once he talks about going into restaurants in Turkey and like they just took him to the back and show him like what they're cooking. He's like, this, right? That's how he did it. So for him, he graduated and then he gets a job in the foreign ministry, and it wasn't exactly what he was wanted to do, but it was like it was a job. And then he gets to travel the world, and he starts a family. And for the most part, like we didn't travel when we went with him to New York. Obviously, we stayed there. We came back, and he'd gone so many other different places, but like those were just places where we hear stories. And so a great example, I was my Uber driver the other day mentioned she's from Bulgaria, and I'm like, oh, Sofia, right? Like that's the capital. And she's like, oh yeah, how'd you know? Like, yeah, my dad has been there. He's told me about it. My dad's been to Prague. My dad's been to Moscow. My dad's been everywhere, basically, all over the Papua New Guinea. But it's all kind of secondhand information. Like I haven't been to most of those places, but I think it definitely gives you an advantage in terms of like having a more world view about things, about why things are the way. I remember my dad when I was 10 talking about globalization. He's like, globalization gonna change the world. And I said, and he told me, and I said, Dad, are you for or against globalization? And he said, it's like saying, are you for or against gravity? It's happening. Like you don't have to accept it, agree, believe in it, but it's happening. It's happening whether you like it or not. And so I think kind of thinking of things in those ways that definitely impacted me.
How did it shape your political beliefs?
Oof. I mean, I had to, right? Like I always think like no, I like my ideas and my opinions are mine, but it has to at some point, right? You don't just grow up thinking certain things. I mean, I say this. I think growing up in Sudan shaped my political beliefs a lot more than my parents did. And I say that because I'm always so I have a I'm very fine tuned to whenever someone tells you because that's what God wants. I'm like, I don't trust you, man. Like if you want to be spiritual, if you want to be religious in your home life, sure. Once you start using it as a method of governance at best, control at worst, automatically my antenna's up like you're full of shit because I live somewhere where they use religion to justify anything and everything, including genocide and torture and kidnapping and assault and all these things. So anytime someone, because to me, the purpose of your argument saying that's what God wants is so that we don't have to argue about this no more. Hey, it's a higher being that wants this. We're just doing the Lord's will, as opposed to is this the right thing to do? Is this the fair thing to do? But I would also say those opinions probably mirror very closely those of my father. So maybe that is what shaped it. But I'll tell you one thing I know for sure shaped kind of the way I look at things overall, and it applies to politics as well. My dad said, I can't. It was some kind of ritual or something we were doing, and I did something a little bit off or whatever. And my dad and I was like, oh, I was stressing about it. My dad was like, do you really think an omnipotent, all knowing, all powerful, beneficent deity who rules and sees everything would care so much about semantics?
Mm.
Oh, I did this before that or whatever. It's like, you know what it's like? It's like people who like don't believe in premarital sex. And so they get like just like a courthouse wedding just to have sex and then they have it annulled. Trust me, they're religious people of all religions who actually go through these extra steps. And I always think to myself, you think God is like, damn, they got me on the loophole where they got married. Oh, all right, you win this time, humans. Like, no, man. It's like, come on, man. Like, it, these rules are these, kind of things that we live by because we believe in a higher power. It's not run by a bureaucrat, right? It's not someone who's going to get caught up in like, well, the legality checks out. I guess you're cool. So I think that part my dad definitely instilled in me of like be common sense about these things rather than very stuck to kind of what the letter of the law is.
Now, as someone who's a Muslim, and
Mm-hmm.
as you mentioned that uh, with any faith, you're going to have your extremists, you're going to
Mm-hmm.
have people that maybe who are like you are more common sense. But did you ever find yourself, because you do have fairly progressive views, in conflict, with your faith?
Oh, every day. I don't,
Okay.
there's an old joke, right, where it's like, oh man, I think it was a YouTube video actually I saw, but it was like it's a skit and a guy's sitting on the bench with his park bench with his buddy, and they're like, "Oh, Ramadan's about to start." Like, yeah, man, I don't know if I'm ready. And the guy says, "Yeah, 30 days without obviously you don't eat or drink while the sun is up." But then the guy says, "Also, yeah, 30 days without having a drink of alcohol, man, that's gonna be tough for me to go 30 days." And the other guy's like, "Wait, you drink alcohol?" Because alcohol is forbidden. And the guy's like, yeah, man. And then he's like, also 30 days without like hitting the blunt at least once, to calm my nerves. Or the guy's like, "You smoke weed?" I was like, "Well, yeah." So then the guy says, "Wait, do you eat pork?" And I was, astaghfirullah, how could you ask that of me? I'm Muslim. Why would you ask me that? And so that's like the universal tie among all terrible non-practicing or semi-practicing Muslims like myself. It's like, we'll break every one of these rules, and like, that's life. But then it's like, there better not be no pork in this, because I'm devout when it comes to this.
I mean, admittedly, sometimes I do, as somebody who grew up Baptist,
Yeah.
and still identifies as a Christian, you pick the easy ones that
Yep.
are easy to stick to. Okay. You're like,
Non-negotiable.
like, sorry, I mean, like, premarital sex. All right, God, you got me. All right, like, what you got me on that one.
The Lord
But
forgives me.
right, but I won't do this. And it's just like,
No.
all right, okay, a bridge too far. Our bridges too far are always hilarious. That's for sure. Now, clearly, growing up in Detroit has the largest Arab population outside of
Yeah.
the Middle East. So my name is Jemele. It was supposed to be Jemele. That's an Arabic word.
Yes.
My mother was a practicing Muslim at the time where she had me, and so like my level of comfort, I've never been uncomfortable being around Muslims,
Yeah.
being anywhere near Muslim culture. But you know how America is,
Of
and
course.
even though grew up in, you spent a lot of time in New York,
Yeah.
I'm wondering what your experiences were. Though people were playing the what is he game, but
Yeah.
especially once people understood that you were a Muslim, and just seeing how, in general, the level of Islamophobia here in this country. What were your experiences like?
Yeah. I'll tell you, it was not so bad up until a specific date. I can't remember what day it
Yeah, I
was. It
know
was
it's hard for to recall the one that
probably sometime
somewhere in
2001 ish.
2001.
Yeah,
Yeah,
around that time.
yeah.
But before then, I mean, Islamophobia was still around, obviously, but it felt like a far fetched thing. So in the '80s, I remember kids in school teasing me, call me Gaddafi or whatever. And this is right around like when Gaddafi was going crazy in Libya and all that stuff. And like you'd hear stories back in, I mean, it's crazy kind of now when you think about it. In the '80s, hostages on an airplane was kind of like, oh, that's in the news all the time. Like, oh, and they hijacked another airplane or whatever. But it never felt here. It was like something happened somewhere far away. Come back in the '90s, you got the first World Trade Center bombing. That's the one with the U-Haul trucks and all that.
Mm.
Um, and it's like, and you got movies like True Lies or
I was
whatever.
saying, True Lies was the first
Yeah,
movie I thought of. It's
yeah.
bad in there.
It's of course it is, but it's also like cartoonish. It's not even. It doesn't feel real or rooted in any sort of reality. The Siege was probably the first movie I saw where it was like, oh, that's some shit I could see happening. So The Siege came out in 1998, right? And it's the idea that like a terrorist attack makes America respond with martial law and internment camps and all that stuff and Muslim bans and all these things that I was like, this feels a little too realistic. And then a couple of years later, obviously, 9/11 happens. And that's when, boom, everything changed. Like having a quote unquote funny name was it used to be like, oh, I can't, a boo boo, whatever. How's your name? Said now it's like, oh yeah, you're one of them. Where are you from? Da da da. And like, and people asking you, and you know how this is, Jamel. When now you become like a representative for. So now I'm a representative for Black people. I'm representing for Africans. I'm a representative for Muslims, right? And so the first thing I want to know is like, how you feel about Al Qaeda? I'm like, dog, I live here. Well, like, why would I identify with anything these people are about, right? And so there's a lot of that for sure. But then there's the other thing which is funny is friends who were like, "Oh, but you're different." I'm like, "No, man. Like, it's a billion of us. There's a lot of different types of people within this, right?" And I I shouldn't have to answer or for Osama bin Laden any more than a Christian person should have to answer for David Koresh, right? Like, if we're going to pick the crazies, y'all got them too. Everyone's got them. Everyone's got them, and everyone's doing it in the name of this faith or the other. So it was just kind of seeing people not understand Even as they think they're complimenting me, it's still that's still Islamophobia. It's just like you're trying to be gentle about it, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it is. It's amazing sometimes how the casual bigotry
Yeah,
that people kind of have in this country, it, as Black people, we get it often.
all the time.
It's I call it the Sal's Pizzeria theory. It's right from Do the
Yeah.
Right Thing when
Yep.
he's asking John Turturro, "Why do you have all these Black people in the wall and
Yeah.
you still calling us niggas?" All right, and I'm like, well, yeah, they, especially if they feel like you're talented or you're only different because they're like, oh, you
Hmm.
guys can be productive. Like, yeah, like a lot of us are kind of like that. And it winds up being actually far more insulting than
Yeah.
probably them calling you a slur.
Right. And the interesting thing also, a lot of times when they don't realize who's Muslim and who's not, it's a lot easier when it's Black because it's like it's pretty obvious, like
Right.
for the most part. But like, oh, you didn't know Dave Chappelle was Muslim? Okay, like you didn't know that this athlete is Muslim, or like this actor and this comedian and it's like across this musician. Oh, you didn't know Mos Def was Muslim. You love all these people, but you hate Muslims. That doesn't seem to add up there. And the worst version of it, obviously, is like, hey, these people exist for my entertainment, and that's why. But I think the reality for most people, maybe this is me being optimist, it's just ignorance. It's when you say the word Muslim, just like when you say the word Black, in their mind, word association, scary or whatever, and they don't ever think of like all the interactions that they have, whether it's direct or indirect, with people of this scary type who don't scare them at all, who they're very comfortable around. I was like, well, why is that? I was like, well, I know him. Well, yeah, no shit. You and by that token, you should be scared of it. Crazy white people and like there's no difference. Again, like it's everywhere. So rather than have this knee jerk reaction and paint the entire thing with this one brush, maybe take people at their value.
Right now, there's a complicated situation politically happening right now in America. And there's
Mm-hmm.
also one in Sudan
Mm-hmm.
where there is a ongoing genocide that has killed hundreds of thousands of people.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not something that is even remotely in the radar of American consciousness. I don't think
Right.
that's an exaggeration. So, as someone who is Sudanese, and then seeing how Americans are blissfully unaware,
Yeah.
how do you process that?
When it comes to overall general American ignorance, right? Because Europeans always like to say Americans don't know anything that happens outside of America. I said, well, there's two really pivotal reasons. I'm not trying to give excuses, but reasons why. Number one is the sheer size of America. Europeans say that because if you're from Luxembourg, you know what's happening in Spain and Germany, Italy. That's because if you add up all of the European Union, it's still smaller than America. It's very difficult to keep up with everything happening here, let alone things happening all across the world. That's not to say things across the world aren't important and aren't worth attention. I'm just highlighting the difficulty of the information processing. Number two, and this is perhaps a lot more to blame now, is because of the way the media is run and things are depicted, and we're a country that exists on archetypes and talking points. And so even if you had the appetite and the ability to process information, your ability to find that information is infinitely more difficult because they are putting up all sorts of obstacles and roadblocks and things to distract you, so you don't get interested in some of these things. This horrible genocide, this conflict, can't call it a civil war because a civil war would would make it seem like one side is for the people or some of the people, whereas this is just a power struggle that has people caught in the mix. But the other part of that power struggle is it's a power struggle that is funded and operated by outside actors, right? In terms of equipment, in terms of training, in some cases, even in terms of personnel. These are people who are not Sudanese, but they have a vested interest in one side over the other winning for their own purposes. And that's the part that really overly complicates it because it's not an easy North Vietnam versus South Vietnam type of thing where you can say, oh, these people want this kind of government and these people don't. It's basically two sides struggling over who gets to be the asshole in charge, because my people deserve to have attention as well.
How much personal responsibility do you feel to be a voice that makes us more aware? I know it's tricky because, like, obviously, with you being in the Libertar universe,
Yeah.
um, you all don't spend hours talking about genocides, generally
Right.
speaking. But do you feel a sense of responsibility? Like, hey, I got to let people know what's going on.
I do, and also I am. Uh, I don't think I do a good job. Let me say that. Let me start there. I don't think I do a good job of it. I do some, but also I find myself, because it's, when you realize the scope of how awful everything is, and I'm talking about my family home destroyed, my family scattered across the world, family members who have died in this, and it's like you build a psychological walls within your head in order just to get through it. So you're not. If I thought about it the extent I should think about it, I don't know how many days I would make it without breaking down and crying. I don't know how many days I would not be in a serious deep depression. And and for me, I feel it doubly because I think my sister does an incredible job of not only being a voice, but also being a source of information for people, particularly Sudanese people who are spread out across the world, trying to figure out what's really happening. And she's kind of like this figure that people turn to, that like kind of, I don't call it ombudsman, but someone like who verifies information and disseminates it and lets people know, and then externally explains what's happening to people who don't know what's happening in Sudan. And so it's difficult for me, to not only not be good at it, but to also be related to someone who's excellent at it. It makes me feel the guilt, and it's a cyclical thing. And then, I do. It's not that I don't do anything, but I don't think I do enough. No.
And you and your sister Sarah, correct?
Hmm.
You all
Yeah.
worked on a project together that discussed maybe a lot about like how you grew up.
Yeah.
How did that come together?
She didn't work on the project. She was a subject, but she didn't know. Me and my cousins, we we're working on a bigger documentary. I'm not gonna. I'll tell you after we're off the air what the topic is. But as kind of like in our little incubator trying to get content made, we got funding from the African Film Festival, the New York African Film Festival, and so we did a short, like a 30-minute doc. It was about my sister Sarah and about a little bit about our upbringing, but more so geared towards what she does, what her life's work is, and her impact on so many people. And she didn't know. I was just like, hey, we want to do this. I'm gonna ask you some questions, and she went along with it. She doesn't like these kind of things where it's focused on her, so I know that wasn't a very comfortable situation for her. But we did it because it was something. I admire my sister greatly. I don't think I ever told told her that. I definitely didn't tell her that before that video, for that documentary. I admire her greatly. I think she is smarter than I am. I definitely think she's stronger than I am. And but I never said that, and because I'm her older brother, and our relationship has always been haha, like send her a meme, whatever, make fun of her when we were little, and so I never really had an opportunity to say that. And so then in many ways that was like my thank you to her and my way of letting her know that I was very proud of her.
Given everything that is happening here, there has certainly been an increasingly strong religious right movement
Yeah,
that is firmly entrenched in our government, especially right now. Seeing how things are unfolding here, how triggering is that for you as someone who grew up in a political climate in
yeah.
which religion, as you said a few moments ago, became the justification to do some pretty awful things?
Right, and the trampling of individual rights and the transfer of power, the concentration of power with one person or one office, all of these things. I mean, even the way it's funny. It's like I've seen this all before. Even the idea of like I don't have to tell the truth. Not only do I not have to tell the truth, my lie doesn't even have to be clever. I can tell an unclever, clearly see through lie, and the reason why is like, what are you going to do about it? And so I saw somewhere recently, last couple of days, Trump was being asked again about the Epstein stuff, and he said, "Oh well, I didn't really know him like that, and actually, he came to my thing, and we had him kicked out of Mar-a-Lago because he was acting like a creep or whatever." And it's like, okay, so you knew this guy was up to no good all those years back then, and you didn't do anything. But now that he's dead, now you're saying, "Oh yeah, I always knew." So it's like your lies aren't even. Or it's like when they ask him, "Hey, what's your favorite Bible verse?" Like, all of them. I
No,
mean,
no,
it's
my
not.
my favorite answer when he did that, he
Yeah.
was asked, this is when I think he was still campaigning. I think it might have been his first presidential
Hmm.
run when he said 2 Corinthians, and I was like, "Oh Lord." With a straight
Yeah.
face, I
Two
was
of
like,
them.
2 Corinthians.
Not just one,
Not
just
just
two,
one,
two,
2
two of them.
Corinthians. I was like, "My man don't even know a second," but okay,
Two,
all right.
two Corinthians walk
2
into a bar. Uh, but but it's like but these are the thing like these very blatant lies. Like, no, dude, we're not idiots. Like, we know, but that's when I realized they don't even care if we're idiots or not. They just want to get done what they want to do. The only difference I see is for the most part, what was happening in Sudan, there were supporters, but there weren't that many. Like the vast majority of the people were like, this is awful, but we were also afraid for our safety and all that. And here, there seems to be people who have the pom poms out to the death of them. And I'm like, this is kind of wild. So, for instance, ICE raids, the idea that they can come and scoop you up and take you, like, yeah, man, that's secret police in Sudan. They dress like regular citizens. They hear you talking about something, whatever. They grab you and they take you away. And they used to take them to the places called ghost houses. And in the ghost houses, that's where they torture you. I lived across the street from a ghost house. So the way Sudanese houses are, it's like kind of the house, and then there's like a courtyard and like a low wall basically. And at night, because of rolling blackouts and electricity expensive, whatever, for the most part we sleep outside. You got beds that stay outside. You bring the mattresses from indoors outside, lay them out, and then you sleep under the stars, right? I could hear the screams of people getting tortured from across the street at night. And again, it's like, it's weird because I'm like, oh, yeah, I have vivid memories of this, but I never remember like being traumatized in a way. Like, it was just like, oh shit, they're at it again. But also with the knowledge that, hey man, you got to watch out. You got to watch what you say around who, because you don't know what the consequences might be. And so when I turn on the news and I see people, particularly like things like college students picking up the phone calling ICE about other legally in this country college students, but because they have a difference of opinion on a certain issue, they're getting dragged away without due process, taken to places where God knows humane treatment probably is not the norm. It's like, yeah, man, I've seen all this before. And it's wild to me. Like I said, the thing that's wild to me is that the number of people who have pom poms out for any of this behavior, for any of these trampling of civil liberties or human rights or whatever, to be like, yeah, man, that's cool. Da, da, da. Like, I just, it is weird to me that there isn't a kind of a feeling of, I, I'm not with this. Even if you're like, hey, I voted for Trump, I vote for him a third time. Even if you're one of those people, isn't there a party that says, okay, I didn't vote for that shit though? Like, that's kind of weird. That's not what I wanted or whatever. I guess we're seeing a little bit of that now from some people, but there's been a lot of stops along the way, Jemele. I don't know if you feel the same way, where it's like, dog, it's okay for you to still root for your team and say the coach sucks.
Mhm.
Like, it don't mean you're a Red Sox fan all of a sudden and you just abandon the Yankees. You could say like, yo, I'm a Yankee fan through and through, but I don't like what's his name? What's my man that hit the home run? I'm old.
Oh,
What's the manager of the Yankees?
Oh, currently, or the one that was?
Aaron fucking Boone.
Oh,
Aaron Boone.
Aaron
There you
Boone.
go.
I was like, oh, you mean the current manager?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
all right.
Yeah, like you know what I'm saying? Like it's
Yeah.
okay to be a Yankee fan and not like Aaron Boone, or not like that, or to like to be a Knicks fan and think Tibbs might be playing the guys a little too much. Like you don't have to be like, well, if Tibbs did it, then that means it must. Like you don't have to be like that. They make mistakes too. It's all right to admit it.
The problem, though, is it's very appropriate you use a sports example, because I do contend that part of the reason why Americans are largely unfazed by the potential consequences of what is happening is because we cover politics like sports,
Yeah.
where it's this team versus this team. I was like, no, 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 no. There's real fucking people involved here whose lives will be destroyed by this. And in the process, you are voting against your self interest, or whatever. Like there's a lot of scenarios where we look back on this time and feel woefully ashamed of what we allowed through apathy, through selfishness, through this rugged individualism that has been a part of the American identity, but can be really toxic
Right.
when you take a couple steps back. So it is it's sort of by design that Americans are just like, oh shit, is some fascism going on?
Yeah.
All right.
Well,
Like what?
and the flip side of that is like when I see like what's happening in New York City with the mayoral race, right? And Mamdani seems to have a lot of momentum. And again, it's like the things he's running on. It's funny to me, like the platform that he's running on. If I were a Republican, a conservative, small government Republican, there is no shortage of policy that I would disagree with him on. And yet they just go like, he wants to make us all Muslim. I'm like, that's what you got out of this? This
I,
dude, he's
I,
openly saying I'm a socialist, and you're like, this Muslim. I'm like, that's what you got out of it. But again, it's telling. It's telling that the lack of any sophistication, really, in terms of whether it's the audience or the communicator, of what the argument should even be. I don't even mind it thinking about it in a sports term. But again, like I said, even in sports, there are Cowboys fans who think Jerry Jones is fucking up. They're like, it's not in Jerry we trust every single day. And so the idea that like anyone in this country of all countries would blindly follow someone no matter what they said, even if they said, "Hey, you're the enemy now." Like, "Hey, he must be right. I must be the enemy." That's just insane to me.
I want to pivot a little bit and talk about your MBA career. I did not know, upon doing research for our conversation, I did not know that you were once an engineering student,
Oh yeah.
and you lived another life as an engineering student. I knew
Yeah.
you went to Georgia Tech, of course, which is one of the best schools in the
Yeah.
country, and where a
Found
lot of
that out.
engineers tend to go. So knowing, I guess I have enough friends who come from immigrant families.
Yeah.
I would love to know how that conversation went. You know where I'm going
Horribly.
with this.
Horribly.
When you told your parents, or maybe even specifically your father, hey, this engineering thing, kind of want to
Yeah.
leave that alone and go into sports.
It's fun. You're absolutely right. Every single child of immigrant has a story. I talked to Janae Ogumake about this, and Janae was the number one overall pick. And her father's reaction was like, "Does this mean you're not going to medical school?" It was something along those lines. Like as the number one overall pick in the WNBA draft, her dad was still like,
And
"Wait a
she came
second,
out of Stanford.
yeah,
It's
like a
like,
factory, a basketball factory, right?"
yeah.
But like it's true. It's like we grow up and because they come from a place of scarcity, the idea is that you got four options basically: doctor, lawyer, engineer, architect. Which one you want to be, right? That's it, right? Because the idea is that you're going to go to college and you're going to get a degree that is going to guarantee you employment and guarantee you income, like good income. And so I never had any aspirations to work in sports growing up. Sports was cool. I loved it. I played, I followed, I did all those things. It didn't even occur to me that this was an opportunity that regular people, to me, everyone who worked in sports was either a former athlete, or my daddy's the owner, or I'm the nephew of the franchise player, or my uncle is one of the part. Like that's who the people who work in sports, and the rest of us we just watch, right? And so I was good at math. I was good at science. What do you want to be? You want to be a architect or an engineer? I didn't want to be a doctor. I didn't like blood and all that stuff. I didn't want to be a lawyer. Or I did, but my parents talked me out of it when I was younger. So that's another story for another day. Either way, so engineer or architect, I'm like, well, I'm not good at drawing. I swear to God, this is the sophistication decision tree of Amin Elhassan. I'm not good at drawing, so maybe architecture isn't for me. I'll do engineering. All right, where do you want to go to school? The year I was a senior in high school, either I think it was junior or senior year, there was a massive blizzard in New York. It was like one of the heaviest snow days of ever. And I'm still kind of fresh from Africa. So this idea of it being cold and snow and all this, I'm like, fuck that. I'm never going to do this again. Take me somewhere where it's sunny all the time. Take me where it's nice, where we don't have anything. And so I applied to Miami,
Okay.
Florida A&M,
Oh, okay.
Rice, Georgia Tech, and then MIT because my mom made me. And so I was like, all right, I'm going to apply just to throw my hat in that ring. And so I think I got into Florida A&M. I got into Miami. I got into Georgia Tech. I got waitlisted at Rice and MIT. So I said, waitlist, can't go to MIT. Boom, that's off the list. Wanted to go to Miami. My mom, the only thing she knew about Miami was the news from the 1980s, and that's like Scarface, shootouts in the street and stuff.
She thought you were gonna be a coke dealer.
She thought I was gonna get caught in crossfire. Now, mind you, we live in New York City, but in her mind, Miami, that's really, really crazy. Never mind that University of Miami is in Coral Gables, which is
and it's
light years.
private.
Yeah, and it's so. But
Yeah.
Miami was off the list.
Mhm.
Rice waitlisted off the list. Also, I didn't want to live in Texas. I thought it was gonna be nothing but racist there, and so it came down to Florida A&M and Georgia Tech, and I said I don't want to go to a small town, Tallahassee. I'm going to Atlanta, and all I knew of all the black people in Atlanta. Jermaine Dupri, So Def was in Atlanta. Stephon Marbury, Georgia Tech basketball. I had no idea. You said Georgia Tech is a great engineering school. You're absolutely right. You know who didn't know? This asshole.
You didn't?
I didn't know.
Wow.
I thought. Okay, so they're engineering focused. How good are they? Who knows, right? But like I said, basketball really big. Georgia Tech, Marbury, all that's cool. Number 2, in a big city, didn't want to live in a small town. Number 3, and this is key, Jemele, the weather is awesome all year round. Did not know that it got cold in Georgia in the winter. I thought I was going to be like T-shirts and shorts every day.
I thought you were going to say the women at some point.
No. I mean, look, that's true. I thought about that for Atlanta. Right. Then I got to Georgia Tech and I realized, this is a bubble inside of Atlanta. Inside this bubble, inside this very black city is a very not black bubble, right? Where it's not an exaggeration. If you went to Georgia Tech like in the 90s and the early 2000s, you may not know every black person by name, but you knew every black person. There wasn't going to be a black person who walked by like, who's that? You knew kind of, even if we had names for people like, that's the running man. We called the dude the running man. Like, you knew who he was. You didn't know him, but like, I know that dude or whatever. So, like, I got there, and there's a culture shock of, again, moving in Atlanta from New York. It's like, everyone here is either black or white, and they don't play none of that. you Haitian or whatever, none of that shit, right? Number 2, there's zero intermingling. So, again, in New York City, I had all types of friends, and it was commonplace you would see these multicultural groups of people, right? None of that in Atlanta. Number 3, very white Georgia Tech. Very white. Like it shocked me. And these were white people who had never seen minorities before. These weren't like white people from New York. These are like, whoa, there's a black guy here. Like that kind of white person. And then number 4, which probably is number 1, it was 2/3 male, which is like the opposite of every college in America. Every university in America is more women than men, except like Georgia Tech, and it's a sausage factory at all times. But because it's Atlanta, all you have to do is step off campus, go to the AUC, and then it's like, and balance is restored. So like it was a lot to kind of process. And I went to school. I was young. I was 17 years old as a college freshman. I was not mature enough emotionally, and was not mature enough to know what I wanted, or even mature enough to keep my options open. So I was an engineering student, and I was predictably a terrible engineering student because I didn't know how to be a good student. And I did learn this was that everyone here, they came to do this shit for real. Like, so my freshman roommate, I remember he took apart the clock radio. Now, kids at home, we used to have these clocks that would also have like an AM FM station, and you could listen to the radio, and it suddenly wake you up with music. So, but he took it apart, and I said, "Why are you doing that?" He said, "I just want to see how it works." And then he put it back together, and I realized, oh, this nigga really want to do this shit, man. Like, I'm just here because they told me there's a paycheck at the end. He's really interested, and then you start meeting people, and like all of these people really, or they like, it's been my dream to go to Georgia Tech. Your dream? Like, I just found out it was a good school when I got here, man. So all of these things, I'm like, I don't think I'm gonna be good at this engineering thing. And then like all the usual stuff. I was oversleeping. I was playing video games. I was out with my buddies and all. Like, I didn't take it seriously enough. And then I got a part-time job working for the Hawks, and that was when everything changed because I realized, oh, there are people doing this shit full time. This is your life. This is your career. Wait, who are you related? You're not related to anybody. You went to school for this, and now you do this for. I'm like, this is what I want to do, and so I told my parents I want to do this, and it's like coming home and say, "Mom, Dad, I'm joining the circus." Like, I could, they almost died, man, hearing me kind of give this sales pitch, and they're like, "You're ruining your life. You're throwing away your life," and da da da. And like, and that's the only time I think my dad ever gave me the, like, I'm paraphrasing here. They ain't trying to hire no niggas. Like, he's like, "You're black, man. Ain't nobody hire you." Like, that's basically your in his way. He was saying like, if you do something technical like engineering, it's undeniable. It's a technical thing. It's an undeniable thing, and also there's always a need. The beggars can't be choosers. They have to hire you, right? Versus sports, everyone wants to do it. Like, their allotment of diversity comes from those who played, and the regular people get to do this, but you ain't one of the regular people. And so the only way I kind of sold them on it was my brother was going to Arizona State at the time. And I said, I want to transfer to Arizona State, and I'm going to live with my brother. And my parents, that was the one thing they were like, well, they'll be together. The brothers living in the same house. They wanted that. And I was going to go to ASU business because ASU had a top 25 business school. But they weren't like, at first, my dad was like, no. And then like it took people convincing him that, oh, there's really good careers in finance and marketing and all that. And it's like, okay. But all the while, my real goal was to get into the sports business program.
Mm. So, and you would have been in Atlanta, what, late 90s, early
Yep.
2000s?
Yep.
Okay. You go to Freaknik?
Of course, I witnessed the slow demise. I went
Yeah.
from Freaknik is awesome to it's cool. It's not as good as it was last year though. To, oh man, it's really fallen off this year. To, I remember the last time I went. I won't say went. I was out with my buddies, and one of our younger friends. Man, I never. A buddy named Vaughn. We used to call him Presto. I don't know why we called him Presto. I think he was just impatient or whatever. But Presto was like, at one point, was like, "Man, where are all the hoes at?" I'm like, "What? What are you talking about?" And my buddy Ben was like, he thinks it's Freaknik because it's supposed to be this weekend. And I'm like, "Oh, dog, that shit is dead, man. It's never coming back." But like I'm happy to say I seen it. I saw what it was, and it was glorious.
Yeah, I'm embarrassed by the fact since I went to college, be more toward the, like my first year of college was 1993, and
Okay.
so when the heyday of Freaknik was like during that time, and they
Right
had
then, the next 94 was the peak, right?
was the peak, right?
Yep.
And so there was a caravan. I went to Michigan State. There was a
Yep.
caravan of folks because Freaknik was not during our spring break, but people just said, "Fuck it,
Okay, we're going down. Yep.
we going down there." You know, classes, attendance be damned, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I could have gone, and I didn't
You
go.
didn't go.
It's one of the regrets of my life is like
Wow.
I did not go because I could have definitely gone to '94 because they literally had like these posters that they put up like, "Yo, we all going to Freaknik,
Yep.
pay this, like we mobbed up this and that." And I was like, and my dumb ass didn't not go,
So
so I
yeah,
missed that time.
obviously Freaknik being in Atlanta was just you just go outside and it was
Right.
easy. It was right there. But we did Daytona one year, and I'm gonna tell you like it's the road trip part of it. I think makes it a more memorable experience. Like just being on the road and remember all this the dumb stuff and what hotel we stayed at some terrible hotel that was miles from the strip.
Probably like 20 of y'all to a room.
Yep. Well, I mean, and then getting separated. That's once you hit the strip, and I know this happened in Atlanta all the time. Once you get into the thick of it, people disperse, and this is before cell phones were really a thing. So it's like we lost track of you. We lost track of you unless we ran into you again. And so that was it was a great experience. I
These
like
kids will never know
yeah,
anything
nothing.
about that. They will not know. So once you get on with the Hawks, and in general, as you said, you went to Arizona State,
Yeah.
and you started making your way. What would you say was your first big break in the NBA? Was it the Hawks, or did you feel like it came a
the,
little later?
the Hawks is always going to be the biggest break because I've told the story before, but it's very important to me to always tell the story because my roommate Kendrick Cummings was the one that woke me up on a Saturday morning and said, "Hey man, the Hawks are having a job fair. Let's go down there." And because it was Saturday morning, I told him to go fuck himself because I'm sleeping, man. We was out last night, and he's like, "Come on, man," and I'm like, "They're not going to hire us." And he kept saying, "Come on, And I'll never forget the thing that made me say, "Okay," was he said, "Who knows? We might be able to go to some games for free." And I remember thinking, that'd be cool. And so I got up, I washed my face, And we went down there. There was like 500 people showed up, and they hired six, and me and my roommate were two of the six. And it was the most entry level position. It was street team. Like we were going from
Like a
mall to
record
mall.
label?
Yeah. So you go on the weekends to the mall, you would set up all this traveling caravan of shit like, hey, put your hand up against Dikembe Mutombo's hand and put your shoe up against Alan Henderson's shoe size and Steve Smith's wingspan and all that. And then there's a basket like not a pop a shot, but like a regulation size thing. And if you made 2 out of 3 free throws, we gave you free tickets that gave good ass seats too, and did that. And then midway through, like the dope boys would be like, "Man, how much for just for the tickets?" And then I started my very lucrative scalping operation where I was like, "Oh, another winner," and I'm just making money, right? And then you had the Foot Locker employees were like, "Yo, what can we do here as a quid pro quo?" So now I'm getting shoes and stuff. But at the end of that year, got promoted to in arena. And so then when I was in arena, that's when I started like finding out like people do this for real and getting to know people. And I always tell people the 3 NBA people I knew first: Rick Mahorn, Jimmy Jackson, and Jason Terry. And by God's grace, all 3 of those dudes, even like, remember me from then. I remember at various times in my career in the media running into each one of those guys and then being like, "Man, I thought it was so crazy I saw you on TV." And which is super cool. And then the weirdest thing about that is one of the ball kids who was working back then is now an exec with the Warriors. And I saw him for the first time at one of the Warriors championship parties. And I'm like, "Ryan, what are you doing here?" And he's like, "I work here." I'm like, "What?" And so, but in his mind, he's like, "How did he remember me when I was 12 years old?" I'm like, it's weird. But that's the NBA. It's such a small place. But to me, Atlanta is what started. It made me believe that this is something I could pursue. It made me meet people who were very instrumental and influential. And then everything from there, everything is a big break, obviously. Anytime you get a job, anytime you get promoted within a job, it's a big break. But the first one, I got to shout out my homie Kendrick Cummings, man.
So when you first got into the NBA, In your mind, what was your ceiling? What was the position you were going for?
Director of player personnel, and I thought there was an outside chance I could be an assistant general manager. I knew I would never be a GM because, again, funny name, right? I was like, okay, so not only are they going to hire a black guy who didn't play in the league, okay, whatever, and then he's got like a foreign name, and this foreign name also is like post 9/11 is like a 9/11 name, as they call it. I'm like, there's no point in trying to do that. What my mission was to be, but actually my mission was to have an influential voice in the front office. I didn't want to make decisions. I wanted to be part of the decision making, and I got to be that. My highest thing I got to was assistant director of basketball ops. If things hadn't changed in Phoenix the way it did, I believe I would have eventually been director of basketball ops, which was pretty much where I wanted to end up. And I would have done that position for the rest of my career with like nominal raises and stuff like that. I didn't need titles. I just wanted to be somewhere where my work was valued, and I was there until we had some changes, and then everything kind of shit hit the fan then.
So, how did you get on in Phoenix?
So I was at ASU. I did my grad program in the middle. At ASU, I graduated from ASU, and I worked for the Knicks for a year. I was in like an internship program, but it was a full-time internship. I was working there 60, 70 hours a week. And then at the end of the internship, they were like, they didn't have any positions. So I had to go back to school. I went to ASU's grad program for sports business. While I was there, I got a job with the Suns. And then it was like a sales job at night, but it was just to get my foot in the door. And then in the summer between my first and second year, I had like an internship with this basketball tournament that was co-owned by Mark West, who was an exec with the Suns, the former NBA player.
Yeah, I was
And
like, I remember
then,
when he played.
yeah.
Yep. Mhm.
And so then Mark helped me get a foot in the door to get an internship during the second year of my program. And that's when everything kind of clicked, and I met all these people, and people started valuing me. And at the end of that, I was a video coordinator, and then it just all kind of started going from there.
Although, looking back, you said that, you didn't necessarily need to be the one that made the decisions. Don't you think you were selling yourself a little bit short? Because like we see I mean, I'm trying to think of
Messiah is the guy, right?
Messiah. Okay,
As
that's what I
soon
was
as I
thinking. I
saw
was like, who's the
Messiah, I was
GM?
like, oh shit, I guess I was wrong. Like,
Right.
but I don't, even now I look back at it. So here's the thing. So there are a bunch of dudes who have been in the league that I'm like, I fucking remember when you were around the same place. Will Dawkins,
Mhm.
the general manager of the Wizards. We started at the same time. When I was interning for the Suns, he was with the Spurs, I think. And then this is what happened. So this is the thing. In the NBA, the number one promotion way happens when either someone leaves or and you leave with them, or they left and now everyone takes a step over. And so Will interned, and then when Sam Presti got the Seattle job, Will went with Sam to Seattle, and he got elevated. And then when obviously they moved to Oklahoma City, and then he moved up as people left, and then eventually Will got his opportunity, which is right before they won the championship. So I know he's kind of like feeling like damn. But my Sam Presti was David Griffin. So David Griffin, at the end of my first full-time year in Phoenix, he was supposed to get the Memphis job. Jerry West was like, I'm retiring, and David Griffin was, I want to get the job. And it was his job to take, and he turned it down. But I remember him telling me, like, I think this is going to happen. And I'm like, I'm researching places to live in Memphis. And I'm like, but that was going to be my thing. Like, when I moved with him, we would move up and all that stuff. And then he didn't end up leaving until he left to quit, which obviously not going to help me out in that way. But like I said, I don't think I ever had the temperament to be a leader. I'm a really good lieutenant. I've always felt that about myself. Like, I'm really good at being a capo. I'm not good at being the godfather, because I think there's a certain temperament and countenance you need to have. A patience, a way to know when to go hard and when to put an arm around. And I'm not; those meters are not good for me. I'm
Mhm.
better at like spreading someone else's gospel.
Mhm. So you would have been in Phoenix if I have the years right. What D'Antoni
Mm-hmm.
Did you get a little bit of Alvin Gentry?
D'Antoni, Alvin Gentry, Terry Porter.
Terry Porter, that's who it was.
Um,
Okay.
yeah, so I left. Alvin was the head coach there when I left. Then players was
You
Steve
had Steve
Nash,
Nash,
Grant
obviously,
Hill,
Stoudemire, yeah, Grant
Shaquille
Hill.
O'Neal, Amari Stoudemire, Sean
Yeah.
Marion, Leandro Barbosa, Boris Diaw, and then obviously Steve Kerr in the front office, David Griffin in the front office. I think I counted. I think this year, this is going to sound wild when I say this. This year was the first NBA Finals that hasn't featured a person that I worked with or a player that I worked with since I left. I left in 2012. Every single year in the finals, there has been at least, if not more, someone I worked with either as a player or in the front office, all the way. So many of my friends have gone on to win championships, and I was just like, I just if I could have held on a little bit longer.
Well, I mean, you still in Phoenix, you saw a ton of success. I mean,
Yeah,
those teams are winning 55, 60 games.
yeah,
Nash winning MVPs. Clearly, everybody knows the history of how they missed out on actually making the finals, which
yeah.
unto itself almost deserves its own 30 for 30. But during that time where they're at the pinnacle and at the top of the
Hmm.
success, like what was that like to be a part of something like that?
So this is my third NBA team working for, and the other two were terrible. It was the Hawks in the early 2000s, and it was the Knicks. The Knicks the year before the events of the sexual harassment lawsuit were from the season that I worked there. So that was a weird thing to watch something on the news and be like, that happened, that didn't happen, that happened, that didn't happen, like that. But to get to Phoenix, that was my first time working for. No, we win more games than we lose, let alone we might win a championship. So that was really eye opening. But number two, the big thing was like it was all predicated around like happiness and caring about one another, and that was a Jerry Colangelo thing that you have to care about the people that work there, and so David Griffin and Steve Kerr, they did a great job of fostering that and development. Right, they taught me things, and I was like, "Why are you teaching me this?" Because one day it's going to be your job. You got to. This is when we assign someone to G League. You got to send this fax to the league, and you got to do this and like all of these logistical things because they were preparing me for a bigger position I was in. They cared about me as a person and my development, and so all of those things, that was kind of like an investment that I got some here and there sprinkled. Some people with the Knicks, some people with the Hawks, but like as something formal to make me better. The mission here is to make you better. I hadn't experienced anything like that. And then in terms of what it's like, I mean, we're the most popular, one of the most popular teams in the league because we play a fun style. We got the MVP. We got Amar Stoudemire who dunks on everybody. Who doesn't love that? And then we got Shaquille O'Neal, and then that's like, oh shit! Like this is what the Beatles is like, where it's like you get to the hotel and there's how do these people even know where we're staying? It's just a sea of people, and like they have to carve out a path to get into the hotel. It was cool, and I think for me it was incredibly beneficial because I was around so many people who were willing to share. I learned so much. Every time I see Shaq or Grant Hill or Steve, I always tell them thank you. You don't even know it, but like me being around y'all let me learn so much that it's given me the job that I have now. So I got to witness. I was not. I don't know if you know this. I wasn't an All-Star or Hall of Fame player in my day, but I got to see how they do and kind of learn from the way they approach things. And it's not just those guys. It's the Boris Diaw's Raja Bell. Raja Bell's like my big brother. He was my vet when I was a rookie with the Suns. He took me under his wing. Leandro Barbosa, like those guys, kind of the middle of the road guys, and who all came from different ways. Some of them were drafted. Roger was an undrafted free agent who bounced around the league, and kind of learning their stuff. And then the OGs like Mark West, like John Shoemate, God rest his soul, who was on that Notre Dame team that broke the 88 game UCLA winning streak and was a top 5 pick, but then he had blood clots and his career was ended prematurely. but working with all these guys, they were generous with their time and generous with their stories. It made me so much better. And it's like, that's why I always think about those first 4 years in Phoenix is the best, because we were at the center of the basketball universe, and I was learning not only from Hall of Famers, but from the people, the architects of the way the game is played now. When everyone's playing this style, like we were the ones that invented that pretty much.
And unfortunately, the end was unceremonious, to say the least. I mean, for you just to clear it up for people, you had alluded to a sexual harassment lawsuit, not involving yourself, just so
Nope.
people understand
Yeah.
this. The former owner of the Suns, Robert Sarver, he, a lot of allegations against him,
Yeah.
sexual misconduct, misogyny, racism, all the things
Yeah.
happened. And he was fined, I think it was $10 million. It was like the biggest fine in NBA
Yeah.
history, eventually forced to sell a team. That's why Matt Ishbia is now the owner. And all of this was happening.
You want to hear what's crazy?
What?
The sexual harassment lawsuit I was talking about was the one with the Knicks
Oh,
in
that
2005.
one. I'm
But
sorry. When you said
yeah,
sexual harassment, I was thinking
no.
Sarver.
So I'm 2 for 2, but both times, not me.
I
But
mean, have you
both
ever
times,
thought that maybe you're the kiss of death,
yeah,
man?
it's like, maybe you're the problem, right? Like, oh, sexual harassment lawsuits follow you. Maybe you're the
Okay.
problem.
So you're talking about the Isaiah Thomas.
The Isaiah Thomas one,
Yes.
I was there for the event. I guess technically for the Sarver one, I was there for a lot of the event. Man, like, that's the funny thing. There's stories that, like, I read the Baxter Holmes piece and the findings by the legal firm, and I was like, man, some of these stories y'all got a watered down version of. Like, that did not. It happened a lot more
A lot worse,
harsh,
you mean?
a
Yeah.
lot worse.
Okay.
This is what I'll say about Robert, and this is gonna sound weird. I think Robert is just someone who's socially inept and doesn't have the patience to, like, want to learn how to be not socially inept. So a lot of the stuff, not all of it, some of the stuff obviously it's all reprehensible. Some of the stuff I think, yeah, that's the kind of person he is. But some of the stuff I was like, yeah, that happened. It's not because he's like a raging, like, misogynist. I think he's just a dumbass in a lot of this stuff. And dumbasses behave in a way that they think is going to impress people, particularly like, oh, these young black rich athletes, they think it's cool that I'm doing this. And I'm like, no. So I'll give you a great example. The way he talked about, oh man, I don't know. The way he would talk about his wife around the team, which was incredibly awkward. Let me just make it clear that no one on the team was like, yeah, that guy's cool. Everyone was like, what the fuck was that? But I really think in his mind, that's like, oh, locker room talk. The guys will really appreciate, talking about this. Yo, you talking about some broad you banged last night? Well, let me tell you about this. I'm like, wait a second, you talking about your wife? He's like, yeah, but like, so it was like one of those things. Like the guy was trying too hard. Some of the stuff, obviously, it wasn't a guy trying too hard. It's just your garden variety racism or misogyny. But some of the stuff I think that came out that sounded really terrible. I'm like, it wasn't. I don't think that was his intention in that moment.
Were you ever around him and you felt like that guy might be a racist?
Fuck yeah.
Okay.
Jesus.
All right. It's like, was it
No,
apparent to you that, like, hey, I
yeah,
don't know
no,
about my
dude, it
man?
ain't. This
Yeah.
wasn't no.
Yeah.
It wasn't Donald Sterling, is what I'll say.
Okay.
I don't. It's not
On the
Donald
level
Sterling
of like
level.
0 to Donald Sterling.
No, he's not Donald Sterling. But
Okay.
he's not. He's not JJ Redick, right? He's not like the cool white guy. Absolutely not.
So I mean, you left it in 2012.
Yeah.
And did you think that was it for you, like, in terms of the NBA? Like what was your thought process as you get to ESPN?
I left. I actually left and went, like, I was like, to hell with this. Like, it been loggerheads with the new management for 2 years. I'm like, this ain't working, and they weren't enamored by me either, because I think they felt like I put a lot of salt in the things that they wanted to do that were dumb ideas. In retrospect, definitely dumb ideas that I saved them from, but they didn't like having a dissenting voice in the room. So we split ways, and I went to go work for Warren Legary at Summer League. Warren Legary, at the time owned Summer League, but also he's one of the most powerful agents for front office types and coaches and stuff like that. And so Warren was going to help me kind of get placed somewhere else. And so I worked for him at Summer League. And long story short, it didn't work out. And at the end of Summer League, I ran into Henry Abbott. If you remember Henry.
Oh yeah, the
Henry,
True Hoop.
yep.
We started the True Hoop franchise. Yes.
Yep. And so at this point, Henry's at ESPN, and Henry had been asking me for years. I'd known Henry for like 3 years, or actually more than that. I'd known Henry at that point for like 7 years. And he'd always want me to come do his podcast or do a show, and I'm like, I can't. They don't let us talk. Nowadays, it's different. It seems like every video coordinator, intern talking to every newsbreaker. But back then, we didn't talk to media like that. So when he saw me at Summer League, he was like, what are you doing? I'm like, well, I'm kind of in between. I'm looking for something. And he was like, well, can you do the show now? And I'm like, sure. And I thought like one of these teams I'm talking to might see it and be like, oh, he's pretty good. Let's bring him in. And what ended up happening was someone at ESPN saw it and asked, does he want to do this? We need someone who can write from a front office perspective, because we got players and we got coaches. We don't have no front office people. And Henry asked me, the only way I can describe it, Jemele, is like if someone came from NASA right now and said, hey, you want to be an astronaut? Never thought about it a second, but it sounds
Why
cool. I ain't doing it. I'm not doing anything, so let's do it. And so what started as like a trial basis, I would write and they would pay me freelance per piece. Then it turned into, we'll pay you up front and you deliver this many pieces. Then I got my first full-time deal. And when I got that, they said it was a 3-year deal. And they said at the end of the 3rd year, you might be doing some television. And 6 months later, I was doing Sports Center and never had any training or anything like that. Never had any aspiration of doing it, but found out, oh shit, I'm actually pretty good at this. And the rest, as they say, is history.
So as you see in sports media, the way that the NBA talked about has changed quite a bit, and sometimes not always in good ways. But what do you make of how sports media, and if you want to just, we'll just say ESPN, because I mean, we both know, having both worked there, that ESPN drives so much of how people feel about things. They drive sports coverage. They drive like how other people cover things. NBA conversations just aren't that fun anymore, And so what do you see as what has gone wrong
Right.
and how the NBA is currently discussed?
Well, I think first and foremost, I put a lot of responsibility with Adam Silver in the commissioner's office. They're the ones who sell the rights to different rights holders. They're the ones who have the power and control to let the rights holders know how they want their sport covered. I know this because we know the NFL does this. I know what Roger Goodell does. I know how people talk about football, and it's not like how we talk about basketball. Number two, and maybe it's because of this, or maybe this is just coincidentally, but obviously doesn't help. The basketball, I feel like, is the only sport where we're arguing about ghosts. I never heard anybody say Patrick Mahomes is cool, but he ain't no Joe Namath. I never heard anyone say Shohei Ohtani's amazing, but come on now, Derek Jeter has him beat by, like, we don't do these comparisons in the other sports. We respect the people who came in the past. We respect the people who are playing right now. We don't sit around wondering whether the 1980 Islanders would hand the Florida Panthers their. Nobody cares. In basketball, for some reason, this dominates our conversation, and any achievement is always put in, well, what did Michael do? What did Magic do? And it's just, it cheapens the enjoyment of what we're seeing. And it's a two-way street, by the way. It goes the opposite. People say, oh my God, if you put Michael Porter Jr. in the 80s, he would have won 7 MVPs. I'm like, no, like, they don't do that. They don't do the going back to the future either in the other sports. And we go back both ways, and it's toxic. And to me, podcasts are podcasts. We don't have control over podcasts. Instagram accounts, YouTube influencers, as a sport, we don't have control over that. But when ESPN and then Turner at the time, and now I hope we don't have this with NBC and Amazon, when you're part of this, that's the part where the sport can step in and say, not you. Not you. You have to talk about our shit smart the way they do on NFL Live, right? Or on Baseball Tonight. You don't talk about our shit with our lowest common denominator arguments. That's for the internet. I don't give a damn how many clicks they got. I don't know. That's not your metric here. Your metric is me. I'm the one who sold it to you under the guidance that you're going to talk about it in this way. And I think the NBA is a little too enamored with being popular online, because that is one day TV will be done and everything will be online, and that's their take. It's like we'll be the first ones there. But to me, it comes at a detriment when you allow the deterioration of the product.
The thing is, I don't even think Roger Goodell had to tell players that. Is that there is just this understood, what they say, what's understood need not be said. And I don't even know that Roger Goodell or any NFL office actually had to say to Michael Strahan or Terry Bradshaw or any of the guys that you see on the pregame shows, like, hey, let's celebrate this sport as opposed to talking about everything that's wrong with it. And I know a lot of people have really come from inside the NBA, come for them rather, and saying that, like, hey, these guys getting up there sometimes and being like, this player is awful, they're terrible. I was like, damn. I mean,
I'll be clear. I don't have a problem with them saying someone's terrible or awful.
I don't either. I know.
I have a problem. I have a problem when it's, oh man, like the game is terrible now. I don't like that. I don't like when, and I've told Charles this, I don't like when he says, and he's like, what do you want me to say? I'm like, I don't want you to say that. You can criticize individuals when you criticize the game as a whole, because the reality, there's two things. Number one is the shit that y'all remember ain't as awesome as you think it was. Go back, NBA TV during the summer, they play the classic games. Go back and watch them. Anyone could do the Instagram highlight reel. You see all the Michael Jordan. You could watch the "Come Fly with Me" tape. It looks amazing now. Trust me, that shit lives up. It holds up. But what doesn't hold up is like watching Knicks Pacers from 94, the Reggie Miller 25-point game in the fourth quarter. Me and Zach Harper were doing live radio one summer, and that game was on, and we're like, let's just watch this. And it was comical. Reggie Miller at one point had like 16 points in the fourth quarter. The Knicks, the best defense, the baddest defense ever. They're coming in transition. Antonio Davis is bringing the ball up, and AD is my guy. I love you, AD. But they jumped on him like, oh, we got to stop ball. They left Reggie Miller wide open. He's got 16 in the quarter. What are we doing? This is the best defense ever. Oh, they used to play defense back in there. They're leaving a dude who has 16 in the quarter in the fourth wide open. And this is not like an isolate. It was routine, play after play. Like, what are you doing? Why are you making that decision? It was just uncanny how poor the decision making was. Or I'll take it a step further. Go to like 2000. I think it was like Pistons Magic 2003, 2004.
Oh, the Tracy McGrady when they were up 3-1.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They took my boy's words out of context, but T-Mac, I got your back. Like,
no, I think that was the first NBA series I covered. Was that one?
Oh yeah. Oh wow. Or you were in Orlando.
It.
You were in Orlando, right?
No, not yet. I was working for the Detroit Free Press.
Got it.
And so I was the backup during the playoffs for the Pistons main beat writer. So my responsibility was covering the Pistons opponent. So I spent most of my time covering the Magic end of that series. Right. So I was there when he said it.
so, but it was like there was a game was like 79-74, and I'm watching this game and I'm like, God damn, man, like this is not good product. Like nobody wants to see. Like I'm watching Tracy McGrady. I want to see Tracy McGrady do Tracy McGrady shit. I don't want to watch him get wrapped up by whoever, not Tayshaun Prince, but like someone like one of those guys. I don't want to see that. Much in the same way, I don't want to see Eldon Campbell take 18-foot jumpers. Like I just
or threes. I guess that would be the thing.
But we asked him to take threes to get out of the way so that like the guys who actually do stuff can go to work. I don't want to see Tyrone Hill hit a 15-foot jumper, right? I want him out of the way so I could see Allen Iverson do Allen Iverson stuff. And so that's part of it. Like your memory of what the game was is not as nearly as entertaining as you remember it to be. And then the other part of it is guys are playing under the rules of the game today. So, oh man, like you just let that guy go by. Yeah, because I can't grab him like you can. I can't. I'm not allowed to. We're gonna send him to the free throw line. So I gotta guard him like this, basically, with my hands back or whatever. So it makes the game's different. You just have to accept it's different, and they're doing the best they can under the current circumstances. And when you don't acknowledge that, I think you're doing a disservice to your viewing public.
So, with that being said, like another topic is how this idea of rings being the sole focus
Right.
of how people judge greatness. I'm not really sure where that came from, but I think that's probably another annoying layer to how the game is talked about. It's like, unless you want a ring, you ain't shit. And it's kind of like, what? Like, there's a lot. I don't think people appreciate how very hard it is to win a NBA title. Like,
Right.
99% of the players are not in a position to win one. I mean, it's just
Right.
kind of what it is.
And so Jemele, like you and I were growing up in an era where they said, "Who's the best power forward in the game?" And it was one of two names. What were the two names? Do you remember?
It was Karl Malone,
Karl Malone or
Barkley.
Barkley?
Um, yep.
Anyone else was second?
Yeah.
Malone or Barkley? That
Yep.
was the conversation
Mm-hmm.
all the way up until like the year 2000. Who's the best
Yeah.
power forward in the game? Malone or Barkley?
Until Tim Duncan is
Until Tim
essentially.
Duncan.
Yep.
Until Tim Duncan. And then all of a sudden it's like, but even then it was Tim Duncan. It was them even recognizing in the moment, this fucker's good, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was his play. It was everything about him on both ends of the floor that made people bend the knee. Obviously, he wins the title in 99, and then you win the second one, and then all of a sudden you got 5. It makes it easier to be like, oh, he's the best power forward because he has 5 rings. Like, no, they figured that shit out before he really got into winning rings. But the reality was, before him, it was 2 guys who had never won a championship, this was the apex of the sport. And, it's crazy now that we are in a place where, look, I know, I get it. We're all trying to win. That's the goal. The goal is to win. But to behave as though that is the sole difference between success and failure in this case is kind of ridiculous. And again, it's all depending on like who's crafting the messaging, right? This original messaging started really around Michael Jordan. So Michael Jordan is better than Magic and Bird. Why? Because he's got 6, Magic's got 5, Bird's got 3. And then from there, if you grow up in the church of Michael Jordan, you worship at that altar. Now that's the lens that you see it in. It's like, I've got to be the best scorer and I've got to win more championships than anyone else. And from this church comes Kobe Bryant. And so now Kobe Bryant is carrying this, but it's an exaggerated version of what Jordan's thing was. Because like Jordan, yes, he took all these shots, whatever. Jordan shot like an insane percentage in mid-range. Like he shot like the tracking numbers from like the 97 season, 90, in the 50% range from the mid-range. But he took a lot of them, but he made them. Kobe took a lot of them, made a lot, percentage-wise, not so great. But it's still like, but this is the apex. I take the last shot, and I'm the man, and da-da-da, and also I got 5 rings. And so now you have this whole generation of people coming up believing that's the religion, right? And so then we get to this stage right now where it's like, yeah, rings are everything. Because if it's not for the rings, then how else are we supposed to measure? But we know it's ridiculous. Like the people that ask, they asked Robert Horry, would you rather have your career or Charles Barkley's career? And he said, hell yeah, I'd want Charles Barkley's career. It goes beyond money. It's like, it's knowing how good he was. It's knowing, like 7 rings is amazing. Sure. But let me tell you something. 7 rings ain't as cool as knowing I own this shit.
And knowing, too, you were the best player in the league when Michael Jordan played. And Michael Jordan, he'll talk shit about Karl Malone winning that MVP. He never talked shit about Barkley winning the MVP that he won because Barkley was by far, I mean, I can't say by far because it's still Michael Jordan, but he
was the best player that year.
Shit.
He was the best player that year.
He was the best player.
And it's not just the best player in terms of I was recognized as such. It's the knowledge on a nightly basis. I control this shit. The whim, this whole thing happens at my whim. Like that's a power level on a basketball court when you know I'm playing with and against 9 of the other greatest players on the planet, and clearly I'm the best one. That's a feeling that you can't replace with 100 rings.
One more basketball question, before I get to the final question, which is I'm just setting up an alley-oop for you in this final in the final question. But one more basketball question first, and that is, how do you think things end between LeBron and the Lakers? You think they
I,
end
I
amicably?
think
You think they end with him retiring? What
no,
do
I don't.
you?
I think they end amicably. The contract expires. He leaves. He goes somewhere else.
You think he's
Where
got
I
one more move in him?
Yeah, I think
Wow.
I don't think he gets traded. I don't think he gets bought out. I think he will play out the year, and then regardless of what happens, he'll leave. He'll go somewhere else, and then that's wherever that is. That'll be the last chapter.
Maybe I'm just a moron, but I don't think that he will.
You
And
think
I
he'll
guess
stay?
I think he'll stay because I do think it's a different scenario when you leave the Lakers. Now, of course, we know crazy things happen in the NBA. Like next thing you know, him and Steph are like, we're gonna give it a run. I'm like, all right, I understand why you would leave for that, right? Or some situation where it's like, okay, this is really set up for him to win. But also, I also think about his age and like how much he loves being in LA. And I'm like, I don't. Do you have one more of those in you? Like one of those like real college tries. We gonna make this work.
I'll give you three places. Number one,
Okay,
not in any order, but first place I'll talk about is Golden State
right,
because of playing with Steph, and I
right.
think that
And
Olympic
Draymond too. Not
and Draymond, yeah,
who
but
they're
I
very
think
close.
that Olympic experience really, like when you think about if you're LeBron, you're a basketball genius, and to play with another genius whose game complements you, because Luka's a genius, but it's like
Yeah,
not a great fit.
right,
That's the perfect fit.
right.
To have basketball be that easy for probably for the first time in LeBron's life, it's never been that easy. Like, oh my God. I think there's a part of that would tantalize him to play with that guy in that system. Second place, I would say, or second location, I would say, is Cleveland because of the
Oh
symmetry.
Jesus! Come on,
I'm just saying, just because of the symmetry.
all right,
I'm
all right,
that's. I mean, when you're saying where he would pick up, right?
right.
Like I don't see him going to Utah or whatever.
No,
Or
no,
like
no, no. I think it's got to be hey, we got a shot. We're a
yeah,
favorite to
right.
win.
Or
Yeah.
even like Dallas. I think Dallas is just too much, right?
Mhm.
To process. Whereas Cleveland, it's like it's home and all that stuff, and you got the symmetry there. And then number three, and everyone will call me crazy, but we do live in a rings culture society, and I have said time and time again, if you win one in New York, it's worth
Oh,
1,000.
I
It's worth
mean,
1,000. Jamel, listen to me. He'll
oh,
never win six, and even if he wins six, he'll never be 6 for 6. But you win one in New York, worth 1,000, because not only does everyone recognize the degree of difficulty of doing it in that city, in that building with that ownership, right? But more than that, where are most of the media centered out of? They will
I-
write the song. They will write the ballads for you. You don't even have to do nothing. You don't even have to spin it. They'll do the spin for you. Because at the end of the day, and we saw, man, Jalen Brunson goes to the conference finals, and they're already doing like, is he the most popular Knick of all time? He went to one conference final. You think LeBron wins a title? They're not going to tell us that he's the greatest player in any sport ever, forever, like in the future, in the past, or whatever. I'm not. Look, degree of difficulty is high, but you get it done there. This Jordan LeBron
it's
conversation
permanently tabled.
done. Yeah,
Uh, the hater in me is just going to actively root against
of course.
that.
No, we don't want. We want to see the Knicks
I don't
fail.
want to see this.
I want to see the Knicks fail. Of course, I want to
Thank
see
you.
the worst version of that. But
Yes, I
but
mean,
I accept if he. That's why I accept if he gets it done. Shit, man, like you really are good.
yeah. I mean, after that, there is no argument really to
Yeah.
probably be made against that. All right, final question to me, and I call this the messy question. This is the one where we will make the blogs. This is where the shade room will write negatively about you. And here's the question. You have a great movie podcast, Cinephobe, that people can check out on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Give me a popular Black movie that everybody loves, but you think is just okay or maybe even bad. What is your spiciest take?
This is the one. Look, I said a lot of controversial things on this podcast. I said I've been a part of 2 sexual harassment lawsuits. This is going to be the worst thing I'm going to say, and I hate that you asked me this, and I hate that when you asked me earlier. Full disclosure, you asked me at the beginning so that I have time to think it over, and I had the answer
Yes,
immediately. This is a movie that when I first saw it back in the day, loved it, thought it was great, thought it was awesome. and then hadn't watched it for a while. Maybe it's clips here and there, but like, oh yeah. And then we did it on Cinephobe, and I watched it, and all-star cast, all-time greats, funny people. Every one of these people I love individually. I love the movies they've been in. I love their stand-up for the stand-up comedians. I watched this movie again, like maybe a year or two ago, and I was just like, Harlem Nights. I'm sorry. It's
Ladies and
like,
gentlemen, I may never speak to Amin again.
I'm just saying, look, if you
Harlem Nights
you have Eddie Murphy and Richard Pryor
and Red Fox and
and
Della
Red Fox
Reese.
and
Yeah.
and it's just like, and even Arsenio in a cameo, and I'm like, that's the best you could do. I felt like it was so low hanging fruit. I was like, oh man, like I'm looking for these really, 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 really high end, like these is comedic geniuses at work, and I'm just sitting back and watching them cook. And instead, it's like, haha, look at Red Fox's glasses. He can't see. I'm like, come on, man. Come on. We can do better.
Amin, whatever wrath you receive from that take will be well.
He ain't even. Let me predict. He ain't even black. This is why we can't let Africans in our space. They don't understand our culture.
You're about to break the diaspora right now.
Yeah.
That is it. Amin has ruined any possibility of there being peace across the diaspora. Like
that BET Awards invite is rescinded.
Rescinded. We done now. Don't show up. You're not welcome there. That I have to say, I thought of 1,000 different movies you could pick. I never would have guessed you would say Harlem Nights.
It was instantly because you know why? Because I expect better. I expected better of them.
So did you think that life lived? Because that's another one. Bunch of comedians. You got Bernie Mac. You got Martin. Did you think that actually lived up to the comedic talent that was in that movie?
No, but I thought they did a better job. And this is what I know happened in life, and I'm not sure it happened. I can't remember if it happened on Harlem Nights, but life had a bunch of scenes where they just let them go. Just let them go. They're funny and let them. I think I'm almost sure I heard Guy Torry talk about this.
Yeah, he did.
About them just going and like cracking up and not being able to breathe between takes because they're laughing so hard. And I feel like Harlem Nights, I wonder if it had been a different director. I think Eddie directed, and it's like, I think Eddie even talked about it being too much to direct and also be in the movie was too much. I wonder if it had been a different director who would have maybe given a little bit more leeway there. I don't know, man. I can't call it. I just think that life delivered more comedically than Harlem Nights did based on the potential.
But it sounds like you didn't think Life was a good movie either.
No, I do. I like.
Okay, all right.
I like. But I also felt like it should have been better. It should have been even better. I thought, and also like there's a part where they just kind of speed up the story, they could have been better told as a story, but it definitely lived up to a higher percentage of its potential than Harlem Nights did. Now, there's no way I could fix this. Everyone just fucking gonna shit on me.
You know how they say we listen and we don't judge. I listened and I'm judging the shit. You
know? What's your answer?
So I would say, it's funny because I can't really. It's hard for me to think of a black movie that I had like such a high expectation for. It got let down. Now I know in general my answer is Napoleon Dynamite. Like I just don't think it's funny.
Nah, I need a black movie. No, hold on.
I know, right? You're
not giving me no damn indie movie that was made for $7 with Uncle Rico.
Yeah, I used to think it was Baby Boy. And
what
I did. I did not love Baby Boy the first probably 5 times I saw it, but it grew on me. So I did come around. I was like, this traumatic pseudo psycho. What the hell is this?
Snoop talking about, you put yourself a little fort, huh?
I know. Fuck your fort. I know. I was so. Yeah, I was very very traumatized by that one. But and this is not to suggest that I love every Black movie that comes out, but when you think about the expectation level,
Yes, no,
versus
these the ones that are. We're not talking about Tyler Perry's "Why Did My Shoelaces Get Untied" or whatever.
right,
We're
so we're
talking
talking
about
about
the
something
ones.
that
Yeah,
is near and dear to Black culture. I'll
yeah.
give you. I didn't love Poetic Justice.
No,
I didn't love Poetic Justice. I love
it's a,
Tupac in it.
yeah.
I
I
didn't.
love Janet in it, right?
It was like,
Look, it's a
eh.
flimsy premise. It's a flimsy
It,
premise,
it very much so. And
but
there's funny parts, but it's like
I thought it was. I liked it. I
they
liked
should have done
Poetic.
better. I mean, if we're going by the barometer of a movie that you thought maybe going in like, oh, this shit about to kill. It's like, Pac at that point in his
Yeah,
career, Janet Jackson had some
yeah,
acting chops. Regina King, that was really the first time we saw her sort of break out in Boys in the Hood before then, but like she was really breaking out different,
yes.
she was no
As
longer Brenda.
a more adult role. Yeah, like
Correct. Yeah, she was
yeah,
no longer Brenda from 227. So like
yeah.
we're good on that. But like that movie just oh, you know what? I know it.
What's
This
that?
is the answer. I didn't love Poetic Justice, but I can take Poetic Justice. The movie that Black people love that I cannot stand is Belly. That is the movie. Belly is
Mm.
bad, people. I'm tired of y'all lying. Just
It's
because you
hold on.
love the cinematography of it,
There you
I
go.
get it.
Hey, look, hey, it's a visual medium. It's a visual medium first and foremost. Anyone
Okay.
can tell a story with
Africa's far. I will never.
we
They
did.
will pay for their crimes. They will pay for their crimes. That old Malcolm X plot in there. Are you kidding me? That movie was terrible.
Yeah, one of my favorite lines is when he's like, Tommy, or as we called him, Buns. I'm like, wait a second. There's no exposition.
I was like,
That's just
who
like,
wrote this
yeah,
and why?
why did you just make his name like Benny or some shit like that? So like Buns would be like,
Yes.
nah, Tommy, or as we called him, Buns. I'm like, wait, am I supposed to see the connection here?
It
No, man.
is. That
Hey,
movie's horrible. It's
easy
horrible.
cowboy. I just want to see if we can do something. That's how we found out Method Man was a good actor. Sometimes you've got to do. That's how we discovered Weebay, Hassan Johnson, like great act. Like there's a lot of Terrell Hicks. I know she was in Bronxdale, but like
She was great
still,
in that.
she
She
was great in that
was.
movie.
They
We
failed all of them.
look, we found out. This is what we found out. We found out T-Boz, Nas, maybe not so much. Like,
Africa's
yeah,
far lives in my head rent free. That's all I can say. It lives in there rent free. So
he gave Shorty his chain, and then the next scene he's walking away and he's got the chain back. I'm like, damn, would you let him
it's
hold
just,
it for a second? That movie, it's a great comedy. You gotta,
I
it's
know
a great.
I was like, but it wasn't supposed to be. It's the point. It's like they never drew that up as a comedy. I was like, so
So, so
yes, it's belly.
we reviewed it on Cinephobe. The behind the scenes of that is crazy. So any scene where they're smoking weed in movies, typically they're smoking like oregano or like some incense, something that burns and looks like weed, but it's not real weed. That did not happen in Belly. They
Not a
used
shot.
real alcohol and real
Not a
weed. They were high and drunk the whole time. The DMX's house, I think, was actually his real house in Miami. Like it was all like it was terribly run as a business as far as like let's make a movie.
I
It was
mean, none
just
of this shocks me given the
they blew
product.
they blew the budget on alcohol, weed, and strippers and all that. And then
Uh,
that's why it's like the first 15 minutes are so pristine, and then it's like,
and then
yeah,
the
we gotta
rest
finish
is
this
just
shit. Gotta get this shit in the can.
oh man. All right. Well, I guess we both gonna get canceled, but I feel like you're gonna be
Mine's worse. No,
yours is way worse than mine.
yeah.